As it's
All right. All right, so let me just do a quick intro for Barry. So thank you everybody for joining us today. My name is Rick Trevino. I'm the office manager for the Palos Verdes Association of Realtors. And this morning, and just like last year, we have Barry Eisen, who's going to be starting us off early in the year, just kind of get the mindset set, proper for the rest of the year. Let's see. I don't want to take up too much time with the intro, other than Barry's got some great tools, and just uh, I'm gonna just turn it over to Barry. Say thank you for joining us again, and yeah, take it away. It's all yours.
wow, no affiliates or nobody else talking.
Nope, no affiliates. It is all yours. Before we do get on, any questions? How do you want to handle that? For people to jump in and ask a question, or wait
We
till the
got
end?
three people. Everybody just scream.
Okay. All right, you got it. Okay,
Yeah.
it's
All
all yours.
right.
Take it away.
So let me see who's here. We have Zeba and we have Didi and who else we have? And you?
So it is Didi, Tasha, and Zeba right now. And we
Oh,
have others that will probably be showing up shortly.
I don't see Tasha there. So can I get a screen back to, is that me or you doing the screens? Because I just
Um,
see you right now. Can you give me a broad screen of everyone who's on or?
yeah, you can handle that. Up on the top where it says view,
Okay.
you can click it to speaker.
Oh, now it says manage participants, show chat. What does that mean if I do manage participants? That just shows who they are on the right side. Okay. Tashia, hi. I just read that. I have to squint to see it because it's got very small print here. So all I see is you. Um, oh well. So yeah, I just have there's just I don't see any, there's no feedback or anything that way. Oh, maybe there's some things off. Oh, you guys have it muted and you don't have your stuff on. That's what's going on, right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, we're muted.
Okay.
No problem. And since I
Yeah.
have you on the phone,
Wow, that's pretty non-existent. Okay. Well, let's not screw around. Whatever I'm looking at, I'm looking at. And if you want to, if anybody wants to interject, just raise your voice because I can't see anything that's going on. So, is anything that you want me to dwell on a little bit longer? I thought this was a usual meeting that I'd been at where there was a full agenda. So I'm kind of geared to, half an hour, but I really don't care because I haven't booked anything until 12 today. So if anybody wants to, talk specifically, just shout out, there's not that many people to concern with. So yeah, I'm Barry Eisen. I don't know how many of you are familiar with me or not. I'll give you 2 seconds of a, not 2 seconds, I'll give you less than 2 minutes of a background. I've been dealing and working with lots of thousands of people in the field of neuroscience as it is applied to life, not just life extension and aging and living the better life, but right specifically down into the trenches. And mostly I've worked with entrepreneurs, and of the entrepreneurs, 90% realtors. So I speak at a lot of associations and have over the past, did about 8,000 corporate presentations. So for 50 years, it's been quite full. Right now, I'm focusing more on personal and business coaching. Although I have worked with college students, I've spoken at the local colleges and universities, their law schools, for people to pass the bar exam. If they have a higher percentage, they can charge more. So it's the romance of commerce. And the normal passing percentage, the normal failure percentage is about 75% the 2 times a year that they actually give the bar exam. My passing percentage is over 80%, and I've worked with about 1,800 students over the years. Not the main thing that I do, but it really translates to what I'm going to be sharing with you as well, which is being in the moment, being very specific, and really controlling your habits and your attitudes. And you do have a great deal of control over that aspect of, life. But mostly I do work with realtors, and I do a lot of things with hypnosis because that reinforces whatever behavior changes people are looking to create for themselves. It's just a faster and easy thing. I'll touch on that later. I think you might find it interesting. Um, but let me start off and not give you a cliche. The topic was to be oriented around, you know, dealing with stress, not dealing with it, but managing it and maybe even eliminating it because most stress is really self-induced. But, the cliche, don't sweat the small stuff, and it's all small stuff. That's crap because some stuff is major stuff. Doesn't require stress being attached to it, but some things are major that are of concern. But where you put your attention has a lot to do with the quality of your life and the health of your life moving forward. So stress comes, from primordial times when we, dragged ourselves out of that sludge millions and millions of years ago. We were prey for anything that was bigger than we were, so that there was no fight or flight mechanism. You were basically eaten or you took off. So stress was there because it triggered danger, still triggers danger today, but we blow it a little bit out of proportion. As we evolved into human beings, everybody deals with stress, and it has a lot to do with everything that we do in the course of the day, whether you're consciously aware of it or whether it's subconscious. And most of what we do in the course of our lives is subconscious. We make decisions that are based on, well, there are three things that really create a lifestyle. They say that about 15 to 20% of who we are is DNA. It's just those chromosomes. It's the DNA that's passed on generation to generation. A lot of it is physiological. So if there are heart issues, you got it from this guy, you got it from that guy, whether it's your mom, your dad, your uncle, and those things are real. They say that about 70% is behavioral of who we become. It's what we learn. It's what we gravitate to. It's what we're repulsed by. It's those choices we make during the day. And we have control of those because if we have learned to do something a particular way, the very great chance is that if you put attention to it, you can change how you do those things and do them better. The last approximate 15, 20%, all rough kind of stuff, but it all comes from neuroscientists who are way smarter than I am. But they do the research, I do the reporting. The last approximate 15% of who we are just has to do with just dumb luck. It's opportunity, it's things that screw up at a last moment, and it's, you were prepared for it, everything is smooth, and the deal doesn't go through. Or your kid does something really stupid, even though you anticipated something else. Life changes, and it can change very radically. I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but everybody shares those experiences, whether we talk with other people about them or not. And how we deal with those things really kind of lays the patterns in our brains. Those neurological pathways have us see things differently. So perspective has a lot to do with what our worldview is. And that's exactly what perspective is, your worldview. But some people really become drama queens. They become very theatrical, and everything is henny penny, the sky is falling. We really don't have to start our lives that way. But if you find that you are that way, I've got some things that will take away some of the nervousness that stress creates, take away some of the poor self-image that stress creates, take away some of those lost deals that you should have gotten, or the relationships that could have been better maintained. And it is a lot about dealing with stress and being present. So, specifically about business, because that's who I talk to in the course of my day, are people who are giving me feedback back in the coaching that I do, is for many people, it is simply a matter of doing better preparation. When you're prepared, You do a lot less nervous stuff, a lot less irrelevant chatter when you're doing presentations. When a question comes that you're just not prepared for, you can figure your way through it because everything else is in place and this is just a blip. It is not the end of your presentation. It's not the end of your life. So preparation is important. Knowing where you're going, who you're going to be talking to. I was surprised this morning because I've spoken to groups of basically 40 and 50. I guess that was more at an MLS kind of meeting. So I didn't know what to expect. And that's why I'm saying, for the few that are on, if you want to just jump in and interrupt me, I'd love to answer a question. Most of my answers are correct. Some, maybe not so much, but you got to figure it out. But I do have some really good ideas. I've got a master's degree in psychology, which means absolutely nothing. But I do my studies every day and I really keep up with things. So back to the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of it all. Preparation. If you know who you're going to be talking to, not that you're just going to give a presentation or that you're going to make an hour's worth of calls, what's your mindset at that time? Who are you going to be talking to? What, if anything, do you know about that particular person you're talking to or the situation that you're going into? Doing as much research as you can makes you better prepared, a little bit easier, quicker on your feet if you're asked something that you're not prepared for. And it also gives you the ability to ask the right questions. And when you're in a pinch, asking a question is a pretty good strategy. But you got to know where you're coming from and maybe where they're coming from. So, small point, let me not beat it to death. Another major point, and it's so, you know, insignificant to those that this is not relevant for, but show up to your appointments early. Be there so you can be calm, you can be relaxed, you can take in the environment. What does it look like so that things just don't go bump in the night in your mind, but get settled in, prepare yourself. If you've got a presentation and you've created bullet points on a 3x5 card, that's the time to go through it, do a little relaxation exercise, but give yourself enough time to be the person that you have the capability of being. When you have to apologize being late, regardless of what your reason is, it's the other person's life, and they can hear you academically, but you're giving a psychological message, and it's a hard one to overcome. So, first impressions are good ones. And if you can get there early, it shows courtesy, it shows respect. And from there, you're more in control of what's going on. Number
Barry,
three.
just real quick, I'm
Yeah,
sorry if I can
please.
interrupt here. So
Yeah.
Ziva actually presented us with our first question. So she said, "Good morning. Question: What is the best way to prepare for exams?"
Oh, okay. Got some answers there. It's a little out of context, but my time is your time, and I'm glad for the question. In preparing for exams, they say that the optimal time to study is within a 20 to 30-minute period of time. Don't overload because then you get into stuff that your mind is just not breathing well with. But if you can study for 20 to 30 minutes, the best thing that you can do, and this comes from studies that were done back in the 70s, and if not the 60s, at Michigan State University. And they say if you can take a nap, if not a nap, just relax for about 15 minutes after that. If the information is important that you're studying, cut it down. If you're reading for an hour, give yourself 30 minutes to do the studying. And then if you can just lay back and relax, don't be a slave to your phone or anything else. Just block the time out and just relax. The more you can relax, the better, instead of just going into a full sleep. Just get into that kind of twilight relaxation. Just focus on breathing or focus on a passive scene. It doesn't really matter. Count down from 20 to 1 and just relax and be with it. And the reason is this: when you're studying, you're in a conscious state. A conscious state in terms of neuroscience and measurement is in a beta level. Your beta wave ranges between 15 to 23 cycles per second. So it's a very confused one. So when we're trying to concentrate, we're absorbing it, but we're not making connections greatly. And that's why people have to go back and read a sentence over again or a paragraph over again, because they're reading, but they're not really grokking it. They're not really getting it. So you have absorbed it. It is in your mind, but consciously, you may feel like you're not in control of the material. If you take a little nap for about 15 minutes or so, what happens is you drop into an alpha state. And an alpha state of brain activity measures between 7 to 14 cycles per second. And that means there are less circus, sideshows to spoil the circus. So your mind has a tendency of solidifying the information. That's what your hippocampus does when it's engaged in an alpha state. So it's a very good technique. I will show you a technique at the end of what I'm talking about that I'll put more time into. Trust me on this one. And if not, call me a liar and then pose the question again. But I'll show you some little techniques, little anchoring techniques that can make a difference in your study as well as in your test taking abilities. This is stuff that really does work, and it'll work for everybody. It's something you have to practice a little bit, but once you get past it, it's a life skill that you can use in a lot of things, not just test taking. But thanks for the question. Let me move on and get to what I'm going to get to, because I will get to that, and that's really cool stuff. Anyhow, excuse me. Prioritize in terms of stress, dealing with stress. Stressed out people in many cases just kind of run from, hither to yon all over the place. Any little thing that, squirrel, 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 all over the place. Create a routine. I mean, if you're a stressed out person, if you know that, you may not admit it to the world around you because you don't want to present that. But if you know that you're just a catastrophe inside your own head, block your time, create routines, and start your day with a victory. There was a book that was written by, uh, um, he's a retired admiral, McRaven. I think it's William McRaven, not sure, but McRaven is his last name. And the name of the book is Make Your Bed. I don't suggest that you get it. You're going to get the gist of it from me, but it's a short book. And his concept is start your day with a victory. Make your bed. I mean, unless somebody is still sleeping in it, which would be a little bit rude. But aside from that, make your bed. Do something that you're in control of to start your day instead of just running frantically. Have a routine. Good to have a routine as you go to sleep at night. Nice to have a routine as you're waking in the morning. That becomes stupid if you've got, 2 or 3 kids that have to be tended to. That's, your life is not your own for a few years there. Been there, done that. But literally, it's important to start your day with some victories, but create a routine, organize as much as you can in the course of your day. If you can, if you're doing prospecting, following up your sphere of influence or whatever, you're dedicating social media time. If you can do it the same times, it's a little bit easier on the system to have to think about things that get in the way when you know what you're going to be doing at certain times. Now, this doesn't mean become a robot, an automaton. This means putting in the important things, because those are the things that weigh on our minds that can detract from everything else, including relationships. Because when your stress is out of control, you know what happens with the people around you. The fallout is generally there. It's not appreciated. It's not what you intended, but we react that way. There's anger. There's all kinds of things that are manifest. So organize as best you can. Just don't do things a cappella, especially if stress is important for you to master. Little things. Here are some general things. Then I'll get into what I kind of alluded to already. One of the things that's really important is exercise. Duh. Exercise. How does that deal with stress? Here's how. Not only is exercise of benefit, obviously, whether it's breath, whether it's muscle tonality, whether it's strengthening yoga, whatever the exercise may be. You can't do a bad exercise unless you're doing stupid things, and then that's a bad exercise. But if you're doing exercise, generally what happens is not only is your immune system raised, that has nothing really to do with stress unless you have health issues, that can impact that. But what I'm really referring to is this. When you're engaged in exercise and shortly thereafter, the endocannabinoid system within our brains. And these are little junctures in various places in the brain that allow you to experience pleasure, joy. When you exercise and you're exercising those junctures, those endocannabinoid points in your brain, you experience more joy and pleasure, not just about the exercise, but your brain, your mind, bigger picture, is looking at experiencing more joy and pleasure in the rest of your life as well. It's not just isolated. It's an exercise for the brain, not just your body when you exercise. So whether you are thinking about having more joy and pleasure in sex, or whether it's enjoying food and enjoying tastes that you haven't really experienced before because you've just kind of blustered through them. There are parts of the brain that literally allow you to accept more of the sensory perceptions around you that are good. So that's a real benefit for people who are stressed out. So, uh, so as I say, exercise, eating is important. How the information in your brain is transmitted, you can go to the dark side or the light side. The dark side, as I'd mentioned before, is the default for most people. To override that, eating allows more. If you eat as close to a Mediterranean diet, and if you don't know what it is, just Google it up, and it's the fishes, and it's the nuts and the seeds, and it's the vegetables and the fruits, as you would surmise. It's whole grains, it's oils from avocados, cold pressed virgin olive oil. And why that's important is that's what the brain functions with, these omega-3 fatty acids. So there's very little else that goes through the blood-brain barrier, but the omega-3s are picked up. You work and you think more efficiently, more creatively. You feel a little bit more at peace, and there's just so many different research works that have been done and papers that have been written on the subject matter. And neuroscientists, literally 95 out of 100, are going to promote the Mediterranean diet. See, if you don't know what it is, just look at it. And if it impacts you when you're at the supermarket and you're picking something, you say, oh, I'll do this instead of that. Good for you. If you're going off a menu and you choose a little better choice instead of that, but really look at it on a screen. So it's kind of inculcated into your brain, maybe more than it is right now, because those little influences can make huge shifts in your choices going through the day and your life. So, Mediterranean diet, drink a lot of water, important stuff. Okay, that's kind of ancillary. Last one of these three ideas of exercise, eating is sleep. And why it's important to get a good night's sleep, excuse me, is because when you go through sleep, sleep is comprised of REM sleep and non-REM sleep. REM sleep is about 25% of your night's sleep, and it's where you settle information. It's where your hippocampus, again, short-term memory, reiterates information that you picked up in the course of the day. In your non-REM sleep, in a delta pattern of sleep that you engage, it's a cycle of sleep. It goes about 90 minutes. So if you're sleeping 8 hours, you've got about 5 cycles of sleep if you're sleeping well. If you're not, I have something for you. Uh, but in your non-REM sleep is where your short-term memory gets transferred to your long-term memory into the amygdala. Parts of the brain are irrelevant, but that's how we function. So having a good night's sleep is important. It's important for this reason, too. When you sleep through the night, there are over 50 neurotransmitters that are in play adjusting your moods for the coming day. You're going through a circadian rhythm of sleeping approximately 8 hours. And in that period of time, you're setting up how your day's energy is going to be the following day. It's not just, I only slept 4 hours and I can hardly keep my eyes open. But in the normal scheme of things, we have tendencies where we're more functional, where we're less functional. And to become more functional, sleeping quality sleep is really important. And if you can tell me you can get away with 5 hours worth of sleep, I get it. You know, when I was in my 20s and 30s, I was walking through walls and I was sleeping zero, to get the next event the next day. I played semi-pro baseball. We were constantly, constantly on the move. Sleep was, not really an issue, but you pay a price. And as you grow older, the price becomes heavier as a burden. So if you do what's right today, because you can't redo yesterday, learn to sleep well. If any of you, this goes for anybody that's listening, if any of you have a sleep issue, I have a hypnosis session. I'll send you for free. There's no strings attached. I think people should really sleep well. The world would be better because there's a lot of adjustments that take place in sleep. I'll send you this. It's not even a link. I'm going to send you yeah, I guess it is a link. Just hit it. You don't have to go to a site, is what I'm really referring to. And it's a sleep session. You might have tried things and sounds and voices and, wind whipping through the hollows and all of that. Maybe they worked for you, maybe not. I hope they did. I hope you find something that does work. If you haven't, no strings attached. Just send me an email. It's barryeisen@gmail.com. Nothing real complicated or convoluted. And I will just take your email address and just, return a link to you. I think you'll like that. There's something else too, just in case. And I think sleep is such an important factor. And according to the neuroscientists, more and more evidence. It's really how we live our lives, the quality of it. Studies that were done at Stanford University that were peer group reviewed and also duplicated again at Harvard. They said if you go out in the morning within the first 2 hours of sunrise, there are more yellow and blue rays coming through the atmosphere. And that's a good thing because it sets your circadian rhythm for approximately 10, 12 hours later when you're going to go to sleep. So it sets you up to enter sleep properly. 10 hours later, you're not going to go to sleep. But long before you actually put your head on a pillow, your body is in preparation for what is going on. So, to create a good rhythm for that, go outdoors for like 10 minutes. That's what they did in the studies with hundreds and hundreds of people. Just go outside. Don't wear sunglasses because that takes away, it diminishes the effectiveness of the light entering the cornea. Um, you can, take your walk, do your gardening, sit on a chair. It doesn't really matter what you do, but just be aware of the ambient light, let there be. Not through a window, that diminishes the effect by about 50%, they found. So being outdoors. To do the same thing as you're going to sleep at night, the last 2 hours of sunset, go outdoors. It's the same atmosphere. The sun is at the same position in the sky. So you've got the yellow and blue rays that are beneficial to setting your circadian rhythm to wake up with energy when you want to in the morning. Because you don't just wake up when you hear the alarm or automatically wake up and, oh, it's been that way forever. Yeah, I get it. But long before that happens, your body goes through cycles and systems to prepare you for waking up. So 10 minutes when before the sun goes down, 10 minutes as the sun is coming up or within the first couple of hours can make a major difference in your life and the energy that you have in the course of the day. And generally, when you have good energy, stress is less of a factor. Sometimes it's a contributing factor. Not for everybody. We're all built differently. But nonetheless, that's enough about eating and about exercise and about sleep. Let me give you some other stuff that has to do with stress specifically. Being present, being in the moment, terminologies of present day, right? Being mindful, all those hip pop culture words that we're using. Now they're passe, they're other things. Nonetheless, you know what I'm talking about. If in the course of your day, you had a foundation, a level of relaxation that you could literally come to just to kind of mellow out on demand without doing any fancy rigmarole. Probably very important for a lot of people. And it could be Yeah, get a little nervous before you're driving on the freeway. It could be you get a little nervous when you're giving a listing or a sales presentation. Could be you're having, you're at odds with your spouse or with one of the kids or a family member, and it gets heated and out of control, but you want to be the better person and come from a little greater strength and kindness and love and respect and courtesy. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe they're bastards. Beat the hell out of them. I don't care. But you know what I'm saying. Learning to relax and coming to those foundation levels, like they teach in meditation, many forms of yoga. I'm not just talking about the physical postures of yoga, but the whole mindset of yoga, focusing on the breath or the chant, the Om. It doesn't really matter what you focus on. If you're spiritual, you may buy more into what spirituality may be. If you're non secular, this is just something that's cause and effect. But practice relaxing. My best suggestion and what I've gravitated to, see, I lived in India for a while, and this is just as my wife and I got married. We got married in 1979. My business was running well. We decided to take some time. So we lived in India. It was just a few months. So we were just extended tourists, but we got around. We went from ashram to ashram. We saw a lot of really interesting things, different ways to meditate. You know, they put a label on it and now you can charge more for it. So, these days, knock yourself out. People put these things together, but it's pretty basic and simple. It's like in baseball, see the ball, hit the ball. Don't get crazy, but take some time in the course of the day to relax. Do it when you're not going to feel stressed because people are, depending on you. So obviously build that into a routine. But even if you don't do it well, because, a fragmented mind is where most people start. And many people, because of that, within the first few days of frustration, because they're all over the place, they just quit. And maybe their friend says, oh, there's a guru over here, or there's a class over here, or there's an app over there. So we go around doing the same thing and we try things. This is not something that you try. This is something you do. It's like real estate. Real estate is not something you try. Real estate will try you. But if you're in real estate, it is something that you do. So the same thing with learning to relax at levels that are meaningful. But what happens when you relax? It's not just the physical, not just the mental, but when your body slows down and your brain slows down. I alluded to before, you go from a beta level of brain activity to an alpha. I mean, it's measurable stuff for decades now. So it's really science. It's not me spouting, ideas. But when your mind slows down, you become a better listener because there's less things to process. And you become a better learner as a result. So when you learn to relax at those levels, your mind is more absorbent. That's the time that you would plug in some positive affirmations. And that's really what self-hypnosis is. Hypnosis is relaxation, positive suggestions. And if you've had any touch with neuro-linguistic programming, NLP, Tony Robbins always did a lot with NLP. It originally comes from two psychologists, neuro-linguistic programming, Bandler and Grinder, back around 1965, up in the San Jose area. These are ways of communicating with people and within ourselves. And we best communicate within ourselves by hearing something, seeing it, and feeling it. Auditory, visual, kinesthetic. So when you're in a relaxed state, hopefully you've created a list of specific goals because that's what the brain works on best. And this has a lot to do with stress because when you're together here in your brain, in your mind, your actions will speak of where you're coming from. If not, you're just privy to the world, and every bump in the road is going to knock you around a little bit more than it needs to. Now, I'm not talking to you as hospital patients with mental diseases. You are in the stream of life. You are doing your thing, hopefully, because I don't really know how well you're doing. Most of you are doing okay, if not great, maybe not so much for some, but how you learn to relax and absorb positive suggestions, such as, I earn $300,000 per year or more. That's the hearing part. The visual, see it on a board. Write it, $300,000 by December 31st. Specific, clear. That's what the brain really responds to. And see yourself signing that contract. So hear it, see it, feel it. That's what you want. If you want to weigh X amount of pounds, I weigh X amount of pounds, slim, trim, firm, and healthy. Visualize it, standing on a scale, recording those pounds, looking in a mirror, and having a sense of pride, not in a negative sense of pride, but in one that's well deserved because you're taking care of yourself. So any positive suggestions are more absorbent in that relaxed state of mind. And that's what hypnosis does. So you asked me about studying before. If it's something, if it's something immediate, this will have some play. But in a relaxed state, if you can tell yourself when you're studying that when I sit down to study, I read quickly with great comprehension. You set yourself up for success because you have the ability. They used to say that we use 10% of our minds. Now they say we maybe use 1% of our capabilities. But triggering what is there beneath the surface is really talking inward to yourself and grooving in those neurological pathways. This is not hocus pocus, because every time that you hear, see, and feel it in successive sessions, like before you go to sleep at night, what you're doing is creating more brain cells that are in synchronization with that thought. It's like the first time you see something, you say, whoa. And the second time you see it, you say, wow. And the third time you see it, you say, been there, done that, because it's already grooved into your brain. Well, doing that kind of message about studying and about test taking as well, that when I sit down to take this test, I will recall information instantaneously and accurately using my photographic memory. And we all have a photographic memory. Coming close to it is the ideal. Perfection is probably not something that we're going to experience, but continuously moving forward. I'm 80. My memory is as good as it was when it was in my 20s. Names, faces, figures, things like that. It's not woe is me, and I'm a very small test sample. But if you do what's right and recognize how things work within your brain, you don't just shuck and jive and just throw it off as, oh, that's a cute idea. I know somebody who once did that and they were great, but I can't do stuff like that. Get yourself back in the game and show yourself what you can do, because God knows most people tell you what they can't do. So, and that's boring as hell, right? So when you're in that session, give yourself those positive suggestions. So that's laying the groundwork. But let me take you to another level on that. And this is what I alluded to earlier when I specifically was talking about study. And here's some technique. And it has to do with creating anchors or trigger mechanisms. It was a man by the name of Milton Erickson decades ago who came up with a concept of working with trigger mechanisms to set yourself up to succeed in whatever it is that's ahead of you. And not just in a specific area, but literally broad base. And he said that before you go into doing anything, like in the here and the now, you're going to sit into a class, you're going to give a presentation. Right before that, circle the thumb and the index finger of either hand. Now, that's really a metaphor. It really does, you don't have to, there's no magic in circling your fingers, but it is a physical thing to do. So you could blink your eye a few times, you could wiggle your nose, you could snort if you want to be gross. You can do anything that you want, tap your thigh, it really doesn't matter. A little aside, when you watch athletes on TV, and you're watching them on TV because they make a lot of money and they are talented, but everybody at that level is talented. Who gets to the top where you get to see them on the screen are those people who can focus in the moment and deliver. And that's your job as well, whether it's in real estate, whether it's in your social life, whether it's in your relationships at home. It's a matter of delivering the best that you can be, right? So it's not just for you, it's leadership by example as well. But when you see athletes, you got to know that all of them these days, especially, are hooked up to sports psychologists. I've worked with a good number of athletes in various sports, from track and field to powerlifting to baseball to all kinds of basketball, is where all this first started coming from. Um, Nonetheless, without my digressing too much, all of these people use little trigger mechanisms before they actually engage in what they're doing. Whether they're sitting in the dugout, whether it's before their race, it's before their lift, whatever it is they're doing, they're getting themselves straight and they're focusing. Well, you know what? If it's good enough for them, it's good enough for you. And everybody is taught a little something different depending on who the coach is and what school of, thought they've come from. But what I teach is, and used to teach, is this. You circle the fingers of either hand before you sit down to study. Let's use that example because it was brought up. Sit down to study. You circle the fingers, close your eyes. This is 10 seconds that's going to happen. And you take 3 or 4 breaths in through your nose and out through your nose. And the reason is not just to relax, but the friction of air coming up through the nasal passageways creates a tiny vibration in the skull at its highest point. The job of the skull is to protect the brain that's inside. At the very inside is the neocortex. The neocortex portion of your brain is the critical thinking portion of your brain, the executive portion of your brain. It's the right, the wrong, the good, the bad, the presentation. How are you answering this question? What question are you asking? How are you doing this, that? You're thinking things through the neocortex. So when the brain starts to vibrate ever so slowly, and they've seen this in fMRIs, now we have machinery. This is not hocus pocus stuff. This is really out of science labs. Is the vibration of the skull, the bony tissue. What's inside resting on that bony tissue is the neocortex. So what's happening is those brain cells in the very front are getting a little bit excited, and they become a better conductor of information. What information? When you've taken a few breaths and that is going on inside your brain, you tell yourself, over the next half hour, I will read faster than ever before with greater comprehension, retaining information perfectly. Take a breath, open your eyes, you're not circling your fingers anymore, and start studying. If you use this technique with consistency, not just through your business experiences during the day. I used to teach this at Disney, did a number of seminars there over the years in their creative divisions, the parks division, and there's a few others as well, where they will sit down before they sit down to do creating or even having a brainstorming session. They would go into a relaxation, tell themselves, in this next seminar or get together, I will come up with new and creative ideas, moving beyond what is already apparent and known. Words to that effect. Take a breath, open your eyes, and either do the process yourself if that's what you're doing, which is very limited brainstorming because it's one brain involved, or collaborating with other people. And they got terrific responses from things like that. And we do that periodically with them, just for new people that are coming through. So this is something you can do before you study, before you actually take the test, if it's on screen or in person. Take your 10 seconds, not 10 minutes, 10 seconds. Circle your fingers, close your eyes, in and out with your breathing through your nose, just to stimulate the little vibration there. And tell yourself, during this test, I'll recall information, answer questions accurately, and I'll remain calm and relaxed throughout. You're dealing with the stress, you're dealing with the recall of information, and you're doing it on demand. You can do that before you have a tete-a-tete with one of your family members. You can do this before you drive on a freeway if you're a little unnerved, but getting on freeway and you take all surface streets, or maybe it's vice versa for you. It doesn't matter what it is that you apply yourself to, but I'll tell you this part of it, that if you do this thing once or twice, here or there, it won't matter much. If you do it 5 or 10 times during the day, you start anticipating, and your anticipating will take you where your anticipation is. So instead of having nervousness, and this goes back to the original topic of stress and nervousness, that kind of thing, how it impairs our lives. If you can apply yourself and be the best version of you that you can be in given situations, the first day, you may not get gangbuster kinds of response. It may take you a week, it may take you longer, but in some areas of your life, you're going to find I did a little bit better. Give yourself credit. Don't just shuck it off as many people do. It would have happened anyway. I'm not quite so sure. Give yourself the credit for doing something. It's cause and effect, because down the road, as you're into it for a week, couple of weeks, and you're doing this thing 5, 10 times a day, what's your investment? 10 seconds? Come on, give me a break. Doesn't even cost you anything. So rather than complaining, rather than saying, woe is me, and I can't do this, and I'm bad at that, and all that crap that goes on in our heads that make life not just short, but just uncomfortable to live, and the people around you get it also, why not be the best? And these are little techniques that work to deal with stress and efficiency in whatever it is that you're doing. So anybody want to scream out a question? Unmute yourself if you want to do that. Or we can kiss
I
and
have a question.
yeah.
Hi,
Hi,
thank you. It's been very informative. What is your daily routine?
what I do every day?
Yes,
You want to know what I do?
yes.
I got a hell of it. First thing I do in the morning is I go to the gym for about an hour and a half. I'm a gym rat. I've been doing that for 65 years. And so I start my day on a really positive and a good foundation. I do a lot of protein after that. I'm not going to go through every little, nook and cranny of my day, but I don't go out and do a lot of lecturing the way I used to. I used to be out teaching classes and lecturing 2, 3 times a week. I don't do that. So in the course of my day, generally, I'll have a couple of coaching calls. So, those are regulated. And I also have 3 grandkids that live close to me, and one is brand new. He's 3 weeks old. So we're spending a lot of time, just spending time with the little guy, Isaac, and and the other 2 guys that are 6 and 9. We take them on a lot of trips and stuff, but um, we go over, we read together, we play sports together. That's what I do in the course of my day. I'm not as aggressive about business as I was even 10 years ago, much less 20 or 30 years ago when I was building organizations. I what I do now, I had offices in New York, San Francisco, San Diego, and Los Angeles with 100 instructors, kind of the Tony Robbins thing before Tony was born. Maybe not before he was born, but he was a kid. And so my day is kind of thinned out. Right now, specifically, since you asked, we're going through a remodel on the house. Um, every time I mention that to somebody, they talk about the stresses involved. You know, the expression in the old country is shit happens, but you don't have to wallow in it. If something happens, it happens. What's the next step forward? So my wife and my wife was an instructor with me for many years. So we're of the same mindset. We don't put a lot of time into a lot of the negative stuff. So the course of my day is I contact a lot of people that I haven't seen, people who have been in classes or that I've done personalized hypnosis sessions for. You might want to consider that. It's really, really powerful event. And I do a lot of those, especially toward the beginning of the year, for reinforcing those New Year's resolutions that, generally we throw away 3 weeks later. And so I talk to a lot of people from throughout the state, wherever I've been, just making calls and just having a good time during the day. I record personalized hypnosis sessions for people. Inevitably, I do that for 1 or 2 people almost every day, not every day like clockwork, but my day is pretty cool. And I generally conclude by 6 o'clock so that we go see the kids, have dinner with them, stuff like that. So maybe that's more information that you really wanted or needed. Was there anything specific that you were getting to with that question?
Do you meditate?
Well, I do hypnosis sessions. Yeah, I was brought up on this. When I was in grad school, I was introduced to a speaker who had his arm cut off on purpose in the Korean conflict when he was bleeding out on the battlefield. And the medic that found him didn't have any anesthesia. He was out of morphine, but he had a hacksaw, which was standard issue for medics. And he had taken some hypnosis programs before. And he literally worked with hypnosis on this dying soldier in the battlefield. And the guy felt friction as his arm was being sawed off because his mind was focused in a different direction. Your mind can only hold one thought at a time. It happens in rapid succession, but like a computer, we're just a mass of zeros and ones. It's a binary system that the mind works on. So when you're distracted with what the medic was talking him through about positive visualizations, about his family, positive events in his life, the soldier was wrapped up in that and cut off his arm, sewed it up. The guy lived. And as a result, part of his payback was going to various universities. Mine was Fairleigh Dickinson in New Jersey. And he was a speaker. And when I heard what he had gone through without pain, I said, that sounded so crazy because I knew about, hypnotists and clucking like chickens and barking like dogs and doing that bizarre stuff. But if you scratch the scratch a little deeper, I found that there was a great deal of power that people just alluded to in their mind. And this guy was living proof that, wow, something beyond what I was available to. So I was fortunate enough to ask more questions and I got involved in some hypnosis programs. And I've worked in pain control, not like he did, but in natural childbirths, things like that. And found it to be so impactful, not just for the extreme and the extraordinary, but for more mundane things, the smoking and the weight and the sleep and, the little picadillos that we experience in the course of our days. So that's what I do during the day. And that's how I first got initiated because it was an impact that opened up my eyes. I had nothing to do in my life after grad school because the pros didn't want me in baseball. I tried out, I tried out with the Yankees and, I wasn't good enough and I knew I wasn't good enough, but I had a hell of a 5 years. But now I was confronted with the world and I said, hypnosis, that sounds interesting to me. That can be of great benefit to everybody. So that's my answer.
Thank you.
Anybody got anything else?
All right, so we do have another question from Tasha. So she was looking back at her previous notes, and you had mentioned testing nootropics and Prevagen for a couple of months. Can you please elaborate on those?
Yeah, there's some supplements, and they haven't done broad-based enough studies to really prove these things out scientifically. But there's a field of supplements referred to as nootropics. It's N-O-O tropics. It's one word. If you Google it up, they'll give you the definition, and you will get advertisements like crazy for, this can help you, that can help you. They're all basically designed for mental acuity, for improving how your mind connects the dots. It's for creativity. It's for becoming more efficient in your mind. And it's for a step against dementia, Alzheimer's, ultimately. Even if it's a genetic kind of thing, there's a lot of the slowing down process that some of these nutrients are, what they're touted on. So, the word Prevagen comes up because they're one of the big sponsors for the game show Jeopardy. My wife and I are big fans. We sit back every night and we scream out answers to bizarre questions, and we see the commercials. So there's an ingredient there that comes from jellyfish, that kind of makes it kind of off the beaten path. But they must be doing some good for some people because they spend a lot of money in advertising and they've done it over a long period of time. But there are nutrients like ashwara, bocapa. There's some that are filled with niacin, which is a stimulant. If you take too much of it, you get itchy crawly. I couldn't take too much of it. I tried a lot of these things. And I find something that Herbalife puts out. It's the main ingredient is bocapa. I had mentioned that before, and it's a memory thing. And I take that on a daily basis. It seems to have worked for me, and I say that it seems to have because you can't rewrite history. You can't go through it. I'll take this, and then I won't take this. And even at different times of your life, there are different chemical reactions, biochemical reactions that take place in the brain. So, what you did 10 years ago is no indication of what you're doing now, but you can improve the tendencies in whatever direction you feel that you're going. And I've never heard anything negative about these nootropics. There's no big flap about, if you do this, you'll grow hair in places you don't want it or what have you. Some work, some don't, but I think it's an individual thing because there's so many variables that go into our chemistry and our mindset. So if you try something, try it for a month or 2 months. You got to give it enough time with enough consistency. It's like applying hypnosis or self-hypnosis. When you learn the process and you do it, you just don't do it haphazardly. First, get a base reading and do it with consistency like it matters for 2-3 weeks, because you'll find you're going to either get results or not. And it's the same thing with the nootropics. So if something looks interesting and you've kind of done a little bit of research on who's producing it, what the track record is, don't go for all of the Amazon kinds of, accolades, because they're paid for in many cases, so they're crap. But go to their individual websites, things that have been verified. And if something appeals to you, take a flyer. What's it going to cost you? $40, $50 a month or so. But if it makes a difference, you think it might be worth it. So that's about nootropics. I don't have much more than that. Anything else, guys?
Thank you, Barry. I appreciate it. This is Tasha, by the way.
Hi.
I also seem to recall you giving a really great tip that may be helpful for the other people who are on today, but weren't on the other times that you've done a similar session. And that was your idea for, we all wear so many hats and we're constantly switching our hats during the day. But you specifically, as I recall, gave a suggestion for how to kind of pause in between and kind of reset your brain, but also partially resetting your brain in the same way that you were talking about earlier, with the circling fingers and the breathing through your nose, in order to be able to get on to the next task with the next hat. Could you just briefly refresh for those who are new to some of your talk, refresh us on that?
Yeah. I think, if you feel like you're in a fast, mechanized merry-go-round and you just need to get off periodically, what I referred to before is kind of the bigger version of that. Before you go into an experience that you want to do well, pay attention to what's going on. Not just thinking ahead, but thinking in the present, because the present is the only time that you have. So making the most of this present leads us to the next positive present. So before doing anything of importance, and I just mentioned it before, you can circle the fingers or not, but at least take a few deep breaths and tell yourself silently, in through the nose, out through the nose. I think that's important because there is science involved in that. But tell yourself how you're going to perform in the upcoming activity. If you're going to the gym, and you're going to be on a treadmill, that I will walk or I will run faster, longer, easier, more comfortably than ever before. And extend yourself. So, beyond that, it's just knowing where you are. Before you get out of the car, going to a house to meet people, they're not going to think less of you, even if they're looking out. And if you feel like you're feeling self-conscious and you don't want to close your eyes and do, well, there's nothing else that anybody could really kind of talk about, but you can keep your eyes open and just focus on a spot in front of you. Take a few breaths in and out through your nose. Tell yourself in this presentation, I will speak with authority, ask interested and interesting questions, close assertively, and I'll remain calm and relaxed through. But using the combination of a little bit of relaxation and positive affirmations going in. And I would suggest also not a matter of, and I will close this deal. Some people go for universalities, that you're in control of your universe. I get it. But I think what you obviously have control over is how you present yourself, how you respond rather than react. So those things. So if it's about you delivering the best of you, that's what I focus on before I speak or before I do anything that I feel is kind of important. And I've been doing it so long, it just happens so automatically. I wouldn't think about doing important things, especially the little things, forget about it. But periodically I get into the batting cages. I go kayaking. I want to keep up with everybody else who are in their 20s and 30s. I really do, because I can. But I have to have the mindset in there as well, not just the physicality of it. So these little reminders, just taking a pause before you do something and being the best version that you can be at that time. There's no other magic to that. And, I think I mentioned it, kind of earlier before, but kind of to reiterate, take a pause before you get to the next thing and move through it. What else? What else? What else? Good stuff.
Come on, don't be shy. Barry's here. Take advantage of this opportunity.
Yeah. And by the way, for sure, and I mentioned something before, and it's free. If you want the sleep session that I've recorded, just send me an email and I'll just send it back. Okay. There's no question. Now, let me give you an offer. I mean, for those of you, I do personalized hypnosis sessions where people send me a list of goals, anywhere from 5 to 15 goals, personal goals, business goals, be as specific as you can. And generally, I'll critique the list, not in terms of values. It's not my business to, judge your life. It's not about that. But it's a matter of asking questions so we can get clearer and more specific. So it's a collaboration. And then once it's okayed by both of us, mostly you, because it's your session, I record a hypnosis session specifically for you. So regardless of what it is that you would like to bring into your life and do better, pick up a new hobby and learn it faster, increase your reading rate, improve your memory, sleep, eating, sex. It really doesn't matter what you put in it. It's your life and you're going to do it. So you might as well come from the very best. If you were to go on my website, I'll give you an offer. Here's the deal of the day. Ready? The personalized hypnosis session that I've done for a lot of people over the years, I mean, hundreds and hundreds of people, it's part of my coaching too, because when we do coaching, you want to reinforce the direction that you're going so that next time we have to talk about the same crap that we talked about the first week, so we can keep moving, forward. So I do personalized hypnosis sessions as part of the coaching. But even without that, if you looked on my website, it'll give you a little description of what the personalized session is. It's basically what I just told you. The price of that is $125. I think it's very fair. I can change your life. I mean, the collaboration of your goals and my hypnosis session can make a big impact in your life. And for some people, it is not just game changers, it's life changers. Okay, splitting hairs. If you've taken the time to listen to me, and thanks for the few that have, I'll knock off 25 bucks. Okay? Today is Thursday. Think about it, mull it over, whatever you have to do. If you get to me by midday on Monday, I'll keep it at $100. You can give me a credit card and we can get into the process. Send me a list. I'll go through it, ask you questions. When we're clear, I'll record it. I'll send it back to you. You can listen to it on your phone, your laptop, your computer. It's real transferable. It's an MP3 sound file, nothing sophisticated about it. So it can make a very big, important difference in your life. So if you like this kind of stuff, this is rhetoric. But when it comes down to actually making changes, what you do can be influenced so dramatically with a hypnosis session. I mean, it's a little incentive, but you have to have skin in the game. So I'm going to keep it at $100 for you. And if you decide to do this on Tuesday of next week, the hell with you. It's 125. I didn't mean the hell with you part of it, but the deal is off. So you can make a decision while it's still fresh in your mind, or you can send me an email or call me. My information is on my website, and or you can post it here. I'm not seeing anything, so I'm not hitting the right buttons. Nonetheless, but we can discuss it. You don't have to just jump into the waters. We can have a conversation about you specifically if you want to. This is not therapy. I'm not a therapist. But I can make an impact. Anyhow, any questions, or are we done, or what's, oh my goodness, look at that. It's after 11 already. Boy, did we have a good time? I did.
Flies,
I
yeah.
have a question.
Yeah,
What kind of hypnosis do you do?
the only kind. It's hypnosis.
Okay, thank you.
Did you have something specific about that?
No, because there are different types of hypnosis, so I
No,
just
there's not.
wanted to see.
No, there's not. All hypnosis is self-hypnosis. You do it yourself. Now you can learn to do the process yourself. And I have a recorded session. I mean, you can see it on my website. It's $15 if you're interested. You get it through the website. You get the download immediately. It's a couple of links, and it goes through. The first track is the explanation of how to do the sessions for yourself, and the second session is a session of hypnosis that you can pattern yours after, and you put your own specifics into it. So it's adaptable. But I can do stage hypnosis, but if I have you cluck like a chicken and bark like a dog, or stretch you out between two chairs and have you, not able to move in the center, even though I stand on you, that used to be a stage show that we used to do, me and an old partner many years ago. It's all self-hypnosis. Now, there are different inductions, and maybe that's what you're referring to. There are different ways to get into the relaxation. So whether you're counting down numerically from 10 to 1 or from 1 to 10, whether you're going into a passive scene of a lake and the ripples in the lake, or you're seeing the ocean, or you're doing breathing, or you're using a mantra, you're using words. The design of the induction is to relax a person so there's not a lot of activity going on, conflicting in the brain, but then there's always a suggestion that follows. And whether I'm giving it to you or you're doing it yourself, it's all self-hypnosis. You're the one that's absorbing it in your own mind or resisting it if there's something that's just not, comfortable, and it's a bizarre session that you're listening to. Why do you say that? I don't want to do that. You always have the ability to control it. So I beg to differ when you say there are different kinds of hypnosis, unless I just haven't, come across that research. But that's my answer. It's the only one I got.
Thank you.
Sure. Thanks, Eva. What else? Anything?
All right, quick question for me, Barry.
Yeah.
So when it comes to breakfast, so I usually fast, so I don't eat until lunch
Yeah.
or well, noon. And I'll be done eating by about 8 o'clock. So I fast for the other, 16 hours of the day.
Right.
Is there any impact of not having a good breakfast to start off the day as opposed to fasting?
Nah. What goes into your system when you break your fast is your breakfast. You're breaking the fast. That's literally what the words are. And if you break the fast with, simple sugars and the crap that most people buy over the counter, the box of cereal, etc., I don't think you're doing yourself a service. It may be expedient if you have little kids around because you shove the bowl over or something, so you don't have to do anything more elaborate if that's your scenario. But basically, it's proteins and complex carbohydrates starting your day because that's what your body really, thrives on. The rest of it builds up toxicity in most cases. So no, and intermittent fasting is not something that I do, but I have a number of friends who do it and they swear by it. And, I'm okay with it. There's a lot of good studies. So do what serves you. But I think what breaks the fast is the important thing. Yeah. What else?
Okay.
This is fun. I can only stay till 12. I know you can't. So should we say sayonara?
All right, last chance. Okay, I did put the links, so barryeisen.com, and then email, is it barryeisen@gmail.com? Is that the?
Got it right.
Okay.
So let
Thank
me
you.
know if there's anything. Yes?
Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate your time. Have a good day.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Barry. Thank you,
Bye-bye.
everybody, for joining us. Okay. See you next time. Bye-bye.